We're back at it again. Another reaction commentary video of a bunch of people debating about stuff. Let's dive into it.
America Tour / National Ground Game that's taking on Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA.
Hi, I'm Destiny. I stream politics and video games and random stuff sometimes. And I do, center, left, whatever.
I'm the Soypil. I make video essays and I stream politics sometimes.
I'm Ann. I go by Leftist Blondie online. I am working with the Unfuck America Tour at the moment. That's my current project. I work with Planned Parenthood Generation Action as well at a university in northern Florida.
Howdy, I'm having technical difficulties. I'm Joel Politics. I'm on YouTube. I do a YouTube Shorts call-in show with a real phone number. So I get the wildest callers you could possibly imagine. Thank you for having me. I'll be right back when I fix my camera. Thank you.
Mine wasn't working too. I unplugged and plugged it back in. I know that's very condescending advice, but it worked.
To let people know, I'm more than likely will be on the side of the liberals. Far left is insane.
Cool. We can figure that out, but thank you so much for being here. Next, we got Wick.
Yeah, Wick from Wick TV.
Cool. Vincent.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Destiny and DGG. Hello, Ann. Hello, Counterpoints. I'm Vincent. My handle everywhere is Real Visigoth. It's REALVISIGOTH. It's everywhere. It's YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. So I usually do pro-Ukraine content with occasional politics. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, hi, my name's Connor. I'm a science fiction political philosophy nerd, Marine Corps law enforcement veteran, never Trump Republican, and somebody who's trying to help the Democrats be less stupid with mixed results.
Hey, yeah, I'm Corbin Sales. I do YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. You can find me all there. I do like center-left content, videos, TikTok debates. That about covers my shit.
Hey, I'm North.
You should just have like all the liberals on one side and all the far left people on the on another side, like just to make things very easy to visualize.
I'm a never Trump Republican, center right. So if you're to the left of me, you have a reason to hate me, and if you're to the right of me, you have a reason to hate me. You can find me on X at That Guy's North, and you can find me on YouTube at North Is Live.
I'm online at She's Right Show, center left. I hate internet cancer. You can also stop real cancer by donating to St. Jude's.
Hey, what's up? I'm Get Money Dre. I host No Echo Chambers Pod. I'm a center left content creator on TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. And my show basically talks to all different kinds of people to understand their point of view. I am a big fan of human rights, so if you support human rights, then you should watch my show. And if you don't, then you can f*** off.
Great.
Man, if only I was a part of this panel, man. I don't know when it was, to be fair, to me.
Thank you all so much for being here. And with that, we're going to get right into it. So basically, I'm not going to read the whole spiel that I posted online. We're here to talk about the Taylor Lorenz article and the recent dark money discourse. And so really the main questions are, what do we make of everything that's been happening? Is there any merit to Taylor's claims? Is it possible that she was acting with malice or at least negligently? And what do we think of efforts like what Chorus is undertaking, such as funding smaller creators and helping them grow their platform? How we're going to do this is I'm going to go around and ask people in the same order, one by one, to give an opening statement. There's a lot of us, so we're not going to be able to probably get to everybody. So once someone finishes their opening, I'll ask anyone if they want to respond to anything that the person who just spoke said. And if they do, we'll let conversation roll from there. So with that, Z, I think that you have a really interesting perspective on this. So would you be interested in giving kind of your thoughts on the matter?
Oh man, you're gonna put me on the spot. Okay.
If you don't want to, that's totally fine.
Oh, I think I already did this. Okay, you just saw me trying to make a thumbnail image. Let's continue.
Oh, well, I'm just like curious, how many people are like, is everybody in the center left position here? Or
I try
just to make it more interesting for you.
I think so. I think this might be kind of boring conversation. I think everyone's like,
I'll make sure it's not boring. Don't worry. I'll start fighting you.
Yeah,
if you guys
I'm center right, but I think I'm going to agree with most of y'all. So
Jesus.
I'm a little bit further left than center left, but I'm not like a leftist or a communist.
We've been getting like fascists or tankies in here.
We need to.
Yeah, there's like nobody on the. I was hearing everybody's like open. It was like, oh, I'm all center left. I'm center right. I'm never Trump Republican. I'm like, wait, where's the leftist? What is going on?
Yankees in here to spice it up.
I can be your fascist for the evening. I got you perfectly covered. I can steel man the opposite argument if you want.
So let me say, all right, I will put out there, I tried hard to get like the farther left people. I went on TikTok and I was able to get a couple of them the other day. I did try to, all right? So this is my best efforts, all right?
Yeah, because the far left is insane, and if they got in a real debate about it, they'll lose. So I do think to be fair, Wick's panel that I ended up not doing a reaction to, where he had Soypil, Hutch, this guy Fabian, who has one of the most ridiculous moral standards I've ever seen in my life, and this British dude and Prime Kai. That was an interesting conversation, where there was some good back and forth, but I do think they were being overly generous in terms of like Taylor Lorenz article, and their moral standard was like ridiculous at the same time. But I do think that one was a decent little debate.
Yeah, I
You
reached
need
out to
something
like
to fight because I'll give you something to fight.
I reached out to like 3 or 4 people too. No progressive far left person wanted to join. It was really irritating.
I'll give you guys the thing to fight.
I'll be
okay,
the
even if we have to
wait,
agree.
how about
May
that?
I?
Go for it.
So,
For Connor.
Wick and I were involved in the PB drama last year, 2 years ago, effectively where we were accused of the same thing, of being involved with dark money, and it was opaque, and nobody knew who the funders were, and all that kind of crap. We were stuck into the same thing, okay? Now, what I think was Beckett of Crabbe's criticism, which I think is the strongest criticism available, is that this should be made as transparent as possible, and effectively everybody should be broadcasting whether or not they're getting paid, because, of course, that's going to, you should be honest with your biases and transparent with your biases. And I think that, like, one video, one advertisement, one website that nobody has heard of, that's insufficient for the audience to not feel like they're getting tricked. And so, as a result, I think that it's incumbent upon creators to transparently communicate who they're working with and why, who's paying them and why, and what their deliverables are. Otherwise, we're going to have this discourse another dozen times over the next 2 years.
I can
Go for it.
I was gonna say I can agree with that, Connor, but I think when it pertains to specifically the chorus drama, it seems like everything was pretty open and relatively transparent about like who was receiving money. Like I don't think they denied not receiving money from the 1360 fund. 1630. Or 16, yeah, whatever.
Was anybody, was anybody here in the chorus group or no?
I'm not.
No.
Yeah,
We should have got like one side.
Disclosures. If somebody wants disclosures to happen, then somebody needs to change the laws around either mainstream media, alternative media, or all media that covers politics in the U.S., where everybody's forced to disclose. I don't think that it's fair or reasonable to demand some, no offense, but some content creator getting paid like $800 a month net, like from all of his earnings, to have to disclose that he's like a bought and paid for dark money shill. While people like Taylor Lorenz or the Majority Report or other people can run around raising however much money from the background, not having to disclose any of their income sources, not revealing any, but like it's either all or nothing. So when all of these other content creators are publicly making like disclosures, not that I have to go dig for, because remember we said it's not enough for them to say one thing at one point. Until that's happening, then the standards need to be the same, or not at all.
Can we look? I just want to say just real quick. The fact. Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, wait.
I will say this, and this is something I said in my reaction to Destiny and Taylor's conversation. I didn't watch the full thing because I had stuff to do, but I watched a good chunk of it. I do think there's two ways you can look at this when it comes down to dealing with consistency. I think that's the big overarching conversation, consistency. There is the first way to think about it in terms of, all right, I'm going to establish an organization, or I'm going to establish a precedent. And this precedent will showcase a level of success and moral correctness that should be followed across the board. And there's no way you can look beyond or look past how the consistent moral foundation that I've laid out, because I am setting the precedent now that other people should follow. Okay, that's fine. The other way you can look at it is, okay, I have this moral foundation. However, if I abide by that, there's no level of success for me to challenge the evil actors. The evil actors will use any means necessary to continuously get ahead. And if we are going to get those evil actors outside of the position of power, we might have to bend the rules a little bit to, at the very least, get in a competitive battle. Those are the two ways you can look at it. The problem, the big question is, which one will guarantee, or which one is more valuable? Like if you weigh out the pros and cons, which one has more validity? The precedent setting, moral consistent way, or the bending the rules to get out evil actors way? And it's such a tough conversation to have because we don't know which one will provide the most results. All we do know is that MAGA has control of the Supreme Court, they have control of the executive branch, and they have control of Congress. MAGA is slowly deteriorating the institutions of America, and MAGA is an issue for everybody in the country. So at this point, I understand the precedent trying to be set, but I think right now I will advocate for bending the rules to get things done. And the perfect example of that is how California is willing to bend the rules regarding gerrymandering to challenge Texas and MAGA. So I understand both point of views. Trust me. I just don't think we're in the situation to afford this level of like moral correctness or moral absolutism, because I just don't think it'll be effective enough as of right now.
Anne.
Sure. We should not be treating these as honest criticisms. Let's be clear. The people who are attacking Chorus, 90% of them are not honest in their criticisms. They're demanding a transparency that works
People like
one
Hassan.
way. So
I do want to point this out though. Just because I don't believe you need to be morally absolute doesn't mean that you can do anything to get rid of your enemies. And I said bending rules, not getting rid of them. I just want to specify that, because sometimes people just there's this bunch of gray, but people go too far. It's like, oh, I can do whatever to win now. I'm like, that's not what I'm saying. All right, continue.
I just, to look at this and try to kind of try to tackle it as if they're being good faith, I think is a mistake. We just need to realize that these people, Taylor Lorenz, the Vanguard, all these fucks, they are active enemies to liberalism and the Democratic Party, and we should treat them as such.
How do you contend with the fact that 10%? We just had this debate maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago with Sock Done Left, right? Not Sock Done Left. Sorry.
Sock Done Left. That's his name.
I'm being racist against socialists. Econoboy. So we just had this conversation with Econoboy a little bit ago, okay? And his point though is that 10% of the Democratic Party identifies as quote unquote very liberal, which I'm assuming means progressive because nobody knows what words means anymore. And then 10% of the party, additional 10% of the party, identifies as socialists. Now let's be real, they also don't know what socialism means. They probably just means the Scandinavians. But at the same time, if we have 12 liberals and progressives in a single chat who are all saying 20% of the party, we don't need them to win, I think you're kind of delusional. This is where I told Stephen, I think we need a center-left, center-right coalition. And he's like, nah, the liberals have it. And I was like, I think that's hubris.
We just need a coalition big enough to defeat Trump. And we don't need we could if we get the far left in our coalition, great. If we get the center right, great. We just need to win.
But you need to market to those people. And by the way, you have ineffective marketing because I'm saying, shut up about guns. And yet, Adam Kinzinger, the Republican who was a Never Trump Republican, probably the best example of a Never Trump Republican, after the most recent mass shooting, he was talking about gun control. So the marketing sucks, probably because he's going to be a Democrat in the next year.
People love guns here in America. We need to be able to market to them. You're not going to win elections saying no guns. You just won't.
I need to talk about this disclosure thing that Destiny mentioned because I didn't.
I've seen if he's talking about the same person I'm thinking about. Is it the guy in Illinois or is this the guy in Maine? I'll look it up in a second. I don't think people are advocating for no guns. I think the idea to not talk about gun control is flawed. Well, I also understand what Connor is saying, but at the same time, there needs to be a level of understanding that the issues we are having in the country when it comes to mass shootings is not going away. And now MAGA is trying to use that as a means to push anti-trans propaganda. So it's like, I hear you, but at the same time, we can't completely capitulate to false narratives or narratives that are not being told enough, right?
I think I'd be arguing on this side of things. I'm very much anti this article and have a bunch of evidence, and that's why I came prepared to talk about. But the idea that disclosure matters and it's this zero-sum game, we all have to do it or none of us have to do it. The reason that people are upset about this, and I think this is okay to be upset about, regardless of why this upsetness might come from misleading or kind of not so true claims, is that I'm echoing on your side, Ann. Can you please mute? Thank you. Is that basically there's this aura of authenticity that comes from some of these creators, and if it comes out that you were not disclosing that you were paid by people, even though that probably, in my opinion, doesn't change your opinions, it does hurt your credibility with your audience. As far as I know, Majority Report completely discloses all of their funding as advertisers because they read them on the show. I don't know if they get backdoor funding, maybe they do. But I think people are just kind of scrambling to say, hey, if you get funding, please just let me know. Now, I don't think that's the goal of this article. I think this article goes way further and makes a bunch of dishonest claims that are like, hey, people were being paid to toe the party line, people were changing their opinions. The 1630 Project itself is a dark money fund insofar as a lot of their donors don't disclose. A lot of them do, including one of the donors who gave money to Taylor Lorenz's reporter cohort. And they also make it part of their mission to make it illegal to not disclose your donations. So it's kind of funny that at all this is a controversy, especially because I learned that from the article link. But insofar as people want people to disclose, I think that's a very valid concern to have.
I think the problem with demanding disclosure is, one, I'm sure we're going to do this later. I don't even believe that dark money is a real term. I think it's a fictitious term that people throw around because it sounds spooky. But two, earlier, I think Connor was the one who brought up the idea that the disclosure can't just be one time because people are going to say, oh, well, we didn't see that. You can go to the Majority Report sponsor page and see sponsors, but I don't know how much each of these people give, right? Let's say hypothetically on the sponsor page for the Majority Report, what if all of these sponsors gave $100 a month, but but like Liquid IV gives $10,000 a month. And let's say that, you know, the majority report ends up taking a strange, you know, like vaccine position. And if I would have found out that Liquid IV, which I'm guessing is like some supplement vitamin thing, was donating so much, well, maybe that would change the way how I feel about their coverage, you know, and it might, you know, and it would for some people. So like this, again, like if we're going to do disclosures, it needs to be standardized.
I want to be clear.
Yeah, okay.
I agree with this completely because a lot of the criticism, especially that I've been getting DMs is, oh, they didn't disclose it enough, or, oh, they disclosed it on this stream, but not as a video. And the idea that we should be saying the exact denominations of every amount from every single person, I think is really ridiculous. I think it's totally fine to just say, hey, I'm working with these people. Sometimes they help me out. That's all that needs to happen. The drummed up controversy stuff is overblown for sure, but I don't think that it is a wrong concern to say people should disclose that I'm working with this group and maybe they pay me. But
we're talking about
transparency people are demanding is a little ridiculous.
We're talking about like a 6-month cohort, right? And I want to ask Z to explain what a 501c4 is, but in a 6-month cohort, that's not any way tied to someone's profession or like a long-term financial ties to help young creators get off the ground. And we keep on missing that point, the 501c4 designation. And it's actually crazy right now too, because the Trump IRS is going to be going after 501c3s and C4s that do work they don't like. So this is also putting them in the sights of the Trump admin, I'm sure. But can you explain, Z, a little bit about like how the C4 functions? Because I don't think people know.
He's correct about that as well. Now, is it as absolute as like they're going to go after people they don't like? Hard to say, but they definitely will go after groups that are like supposed to be apparently pro-terrorism, basically pro-Palestinian groups. They're definitely going to go after.
Yeah, so I mean, the C4 basically can like legally engage directly with the campaign, whereas C3 cannot. So that's why a lot of people choose to do C4s, which makes sense. So this whole idea of just like, oh, we'll just get rid of them. Well, then you can't do like direct campaign work. So that's just
Wait, hold on, wait.
I would think.
C4s?
C4s, yeah.
I thought the point. I think
they can engage it.
I thought the point of the C4s is the C4s have to be set up as like social welfare nonprofits, basically. So the advantage is that they can raise basically an infinite amount of money. A C4 and a C3 doesn't have to do FEC filings, and the C4s, the people that donate to them, if they get money from like a corporation, like a shell corporation, obviously those people don't have to do disclosures or whatever. But I thought the C4s were still. Are they allowed to do direct work by the campaigns? Is that only prohibited by like the 527s or?
So C4s can, but and obviously people would have different reasons for setting them up, right? So like that's obviously going to be like a big reason why they might choose that. But as far as I'm aware, C4s can engage in political campaigns directly, whereby C3s cannot.
Gotcha. Okay, for the C4, is it they have the majority of their funding has to go to some social welfare thing, and then some other percentage can go directly for campaigns? Is that how I don't know what counts as like a social welfare thing?
It's not necessarily about that. It's just about like whether they can engage directly with the campaign or not. So how they split up the funding doesn't matter, but like a C3, you can't, for example, call a campaign manager on a campaign and say like, hey, we're going to go do this field program. Like you can't do that.
Okay,
but a C4, yeah. So a lot of people
They can't spend on electioneering, right? So they can't like say we're working on behalf of a campaign. So like if they do 60% work for the public good and then 40% work politically, they can put an ad out that says like, oh, I'm anti Elon Musk and his Doge department ripping apart the federal government. But they can't say I'm doing this on behalf of the Cory Booker campaign, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, basically. So like they can, for example, like if you had like a slate of candidates that you endorsed, right? And it was based on environmental justice, like all these candidates believe in some form of environmental justice. You're an environmental justice organization, you can still campaign on that behalf, right? Like you're allowed to do that, but you cannot directly coordinate with the campaigns.
501c4s have more political leeway because they're supposed to be primarily social welfare organizations, but they've argued that as long as their primary purpose is still social welfare, they can be engaged politically to the ends of furthering that social welfare cause.
Do we think that's bad?
No.
Does anyone think that's bad?
I got a spicy opinion. Maybe this will change things up.
Well, I mean, I think there are things that can be bad about that, right? I feel like the issue is people get like really hung up on the dark money or the sourcing, but I feel like the issue is the fact that the C4 can raise an infinite amount of money, right? There's not like a contribution limit. And I think that's the issue that people have, right? So if I wanted to support, there's like a pro-vaccine candidate and an anti-vaxxer candidate, I'm FEC campaign contribution limited on donating to them, or like a 527 PAC. But if there was a C4, 501c4 company that was like, oh, we hate vaccines, I could raise $100 trillion with that and just spend on anti-vaccine messaging that's ostensibly or basically supporting one candidate. So I think that's like the weird thing about it, right? Is that you can raise basically an infinite amount of money for it.
But what is entirely negative about that? If a group of people want to get together and raise funds and pool their resources in order to advocate for a cause, why should there be a cap on that? If we have 100 million people in the United States that each want to give $1 to...
I'm guessing the biggest issue behind that is like the means of, or the cap of individual spending towards a particular political goal, right? Because obviously billionaires will have much more money than most people, so they get a percentage to them is like a lot of money to the average American, right? So there's the worry that if you capitulate to the few, which is the 1%, and just capitulate to them and not the majority, then that'll be a problem. So you probably would want some type of cap, or at the very least, transparency on like what billionaires are giving you money, right?
Vaccine awareness or something, right? And a cause that they believe in. Why should the government or the federal government step in and say, no, I don't think you can do that in this case?
I mean, because
I
that
have
way
a very
the
good
people
pushback
just
against
be
this,
the
but I need to
people
ask
making the
before I
laws.
start going on the other side of this argument: is anyone here pro the article, or are we all on the same page?
Nah, fuck
I think
that.
we're all on this.
Okay, hold on. I have a
We're just getting
question.
into like
I have a question
Okay,
for the panel.
let me North and then Anne, because I know Anne, you've also been trying to speak a couple times. So North, go ahead.
Okay, so Course was like founded to fund specific types of content creators, like those that are more pro-democratic values. If a content creator stopped promoting those values, should it be okay for Chorus to essentially stop funding them or like threaten to stop funding them?
I mean, yeah.
Why not?
Anyone disagree with that?
Because they're paying you the money to do a job, and if you don't do the job, if you quit the job,
It really depends on what those principles are. Democrats actually are very wide ranging. I think the only time it would make sense for them to stop advocating for, like, you can advocate for anything, but once you start endorsing like MAGA, I think that is the through line, like MAGA in particular. In terms of policy, like maybe if you go like anti-trans, but I think even like if you go like, all right, I'm not a big LGBTQ advocate, but you start pushing out misinformation about trans people that they're like all pedophiles, I think that would be another like through line probably. But you probably could go like, I'm not a big trans person. I believe in rights, but I don't think they should be in men's bathrooms or should play in like or female bathrooms or should play in female professional sports. I don't think they're going to take the funding for that. So I think the very clear through line is advocating for MAGA, and I think that is very reasonable.
job, then why would they continue to pay you?
Well, Course is going. Well, the content creators, of course, are going out of their way to basically say Course is not funding us to push the party line or anything like that. So
yeah, they're actually not paying you to do a job. They're paying you because they're trying to prop up and spread progressive voices. But they're saying if you use this money to, denounce the people giving you money, you can talk about us, but if you're going to like completely subvert our entire political campaign, then we're going to stop funding you, which makes perfect sense.
I mean,
agreed.
You pay them to continue to post progressive pro them. So like technically, if you stop like being for them, they're not going to continue to fund you. And since they pay you the money, they have every right to take it away.
I feel like we've stumbled into the awkward conundrum that is like the 501c4 issue, right? Like what even counts as that? Like, because they're not paying you to make political content. I'm sure they explicitly say that in the contract. They have to because there would be like campaign contribution like issues here. But like they kind of are. Right? Like, like if a boss fires somebody because the person is racist or sexist, oftentimes those firings aren't going to be the boss saying, I'm firing you because I'm racist. I'm firing you because I'm sexist, So it's like the way that these are all structured are kind of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, but it's just like the legal tax / FEC system we live in right now.
A lot of the people
That's the strongest argument though right there.
Yeah.
So as an example, I think that somebody found a course creator who specifically was anti-Israel and made anti-Israel content and didn't get fired.
Yeah.
But the indictment was, of course, that like, hey, there could be this soft pressure where you might notice that somebody says, oh, our values are no longer aligned. You're dismissed from this program. And then that becomes a soft pressure in order to quote unquote toe the party line. And that, that's obviously the difficulty with this creator incubator programs is you don't know who's going to be, you don't know who's going to be successful and who's going to be a dirtbag when you start. But that's where you have that awkward pressure of, I want to do enough to earn my money, but I don't want to step out of line and then lose my contract, especially with smaller creators, right? Because bigger creators can basically do whatever the they want because they have enough money to be independent. But with smaller creators who are coming up, they're going to be more likely to be sympathetic to their donors' desires. That's the criticism, right?
It's not just small creators, though. They're also trying to build people from the ground up.
But you can't do anything about soft pressure, right? A lot of the times people create these weird boundaries that are not realistic, that are not in reality, right? Some people will capitulate because they know that they want to, cozy up to the boss. I don't know how the pay structure works, and I don't know if that is something that they have to consider or if it's something numbers related. Even like being audience captured plays into this kind of soft pressure they're referring to, because they know that if you push very specific content, that you would continuously encapsulate very particular audience. Like I know for a fact, if I push pro-Palestine and MAGA content, I'll get an audience super quickly. I have no interest in doing that because I don't believe a lot of that is in regards to my values, not pro-Palestinian stuff in particular, but more so like the far left versions of pro-Palestine. I think it's fine being pro-Palestine. I've advocated that Israel has been doing very unhinged, crazy shit, especially after they negged on their ceasefire deal. But I advocate for things based off my values and based off the knowledge that I know. I'm very open and interested in hearing people's perspectives, but I'm not willing to change my values just so I can get more money and more attention. But that's not most people. So this soft pressure exists. I don't think they should determine how you act, though. I don't think an organization should change how they act because of this like more innate idea of soft pressure.
Right? So like these people might not even have a previous audience to like fall back on, like where they started.
The honest worry with this, just real quick, the honest criticism is that people worry that if you are getting paid by these groups, that you are incentivized not to change your position, even though you might change your position naturally, and that it will stick you. And you say, I can't say anything negative about who I think that Chorus would be mad at me for saying something negative about, so I'm just going to shut up. And I think that that's the most like honest criticism that I've heard of this. But anyway,
I think that's cutting in. And sorry, Anne, did you want to say anything? I thought you were trying to jump in a couple of times. I just want to make sure you get an opportunity to speak.
Yeah, I don't even know why conservatives are mad about this, or anyone really who's like libertarian or non-left leaning. Aren't they all for deregulation? Like, if you just want to work somewhere else, like, aren't you just responsible for going and finding another employer? I don't understand this. And the problem with funding things like C4s is that those things have a heavy impact on elections. So it wouldn't be a problem if they're not endorsing or saying they're against some political candidate. I don't know why it just can't be regulated for a C4 and not regulated for others. I don't understand that. Just go find another employer.
So I'm interested in, sorry, Connor, and we might be of the same mind. I'm interested in having you all explore this a little bit more, what Connor and what Wick and y'all were talking about with the kind of, it's like an audience capture sort of issue, right?
Connor is in a really unique spot here because you just, because you're doing other stuff right now. I feel like there is, there's this interesting, a lot of things are repeated when it comes to dark money or when it comes to corporate capture or whatever that are like truisms. But I think that if you ask content creators, you can actually get surprisingly like opposite answers of what people assume to be true. So for instance, there's this idea that if you get paid money from some individual or from some sponsor or whatever, that you're all of a sudden beholden to that person. But I know personally, and I'm not necessarily referring to Connor here, you can speak or anybody else can. Personally, like sometimes when people get huge, amounts of money from a sponsor or from some particular person, that actually gives them more freedom to work on a project, because sometimes you can get hardcore audience captured from like, God, I have to talk about, Hassan again. I have to talk about Gaza. I have to talk about this DNC thing. But like having some sponsors like, oh my God, as long as I hit these activations, like I'm actually free to talk about so many different things. Now, that's not to say that like a sponsor could never pressure you to talk about something or to keep something open. But I don't like the assumption that absent some individual sponsor's pressure, there's no soft pressure, especially today on the internet with cancel culture and, people pressuring people to talk about everything else. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of different pressure that exists, and people need to be a little more honest about, not that you guys are lying, but about like what kinds of pressures exist, and that just because there's not a corporate sponsor doesn't mean there's not a ton of soft and sometimes even hard pressure to work on certain issues.
Piggyback off that.
Yeah, I think
for 1 second just about the 501c4 status, though. So if they had a point where they were telling people what to do and how to do it, they would lose their 501c4 status. If that was ever proven that someone got kicked off for not covering a certain topic, or if there's even an idea that was happening, the C4 status kind of protects that from happening. And that's why they have to do more service and do trainings and do it training based and pay people based off doing trainings versus doing like actual pieces for the media.
Well, I'll say,
and then there's this.
I'm sorry, you're saying for regulating a content creator in that way, you're saying that they would lose a C4 status?
100%, because that was tipping. It would be majority political. It would no longer be a public service thing. So the tax exemption status would probably go away. Then they'd probably lose it.
What is majority political?
So like if they were telling someone, that's why when Chorus says you can, if you're speaking on behalf of Chorus or doing something with our materials, then we need to sign off on it, because they can't be represented in a fashion where it's like we are purposely pushing the Democratic Party in this way to support Gaza, or this person was working for us and we promised them a training on how to become a creator from the bottom, and we're going to teach them thumbnails and all this kind of stuff, but we found out their position changed on something, so we kicked them out. The whole point of the 501c4 is the majority is the training portion. It's not going to be majority political. If it was majority political, it would need to be a PAC at that point.
Yeah.
There's another thing that can be talked about. This is the dark woke argument. The Heritage Foundation, Turning Point USA, these are MAGA right-wing organizations that basically do what Chorus does, but even worse. I mean, there's a Washington Post article talking about how Turning Point USA was literally directly paying people to promote certain content. Should the Democrats be doing this as a response to the right and as a response to MAGA, or do you take the moral high ground?
I don't know if it's not. If it's not immoral, right? I don't think it's immoral to take money, to have someone give you money so you can keep doing what you're already doing. My issues might come, like there might be some issue if people can point out to me where Chorus or any other group is paying people and they're saying, hey, change your content and get your money, right? So change your content. If you can point to me a change in content, if you can point to me where they're getting foreign funding that they're not reporting, so like from Russia or China, I might have an issue there. Or if you can point to me where they are saying specifically, hey, do not disclose that you work with us. In those three cases, we might have a problem. But in these cases, none of this is happening, or at least I've not seen any evidence that it is.
Well, Wick, just to be clear, like to steelman the argument against this, it's not, to be fair, there are people that are accusing Chorus of telling them what to do. I don't think I've seen any evidence of that. But what will happen is, and like, for example, I'm taking part in this thing called like the DNC, creator room, and every day they have like, hey, this is what's happened to the news. We just wanted to let you know. They're not telling anyone to make money. They're not paying us anything, but they are giving us resources and trying to keep us informed. And if people use that as their primary source of what they're reporting on, they're going to get exactly what the DNC is giving them. Now, if that's bad, if that's good, that's a whole different story. But people might be worried about, hey, you are getting all of your information from a top-down source that is catering to you these specific ideas, and that could be a bad thing. I don't think that's what's happening with Chorus. Sure. And if you look at the Chorus training thing, it's, hey, yeah, maybe we'll have some daily meetings and updates. We'll give you, tips on how to expand your reach, but they're not specifically saying you need to make content on this. And people need to be responsible and have different sources on news and make sure they're not catering to the people that are funding them. But you got to understand, I have to push back on what Destiny said. If you are someone who are these people that are getting funded by Chorus who said, I quit my full-time job to do this, which by the way is something I did recently, that is a big step. And if you know that were I to at all cross these people, I would lose my ability to do what I'm doing full-time, have to go back into the job market, and potentially might be unemployed to a point of, I don't know, like severe financial ruin. You're going to feel pressure regardless.
Yeah, but how is that
your primary source of income?
Sure. How is that pressure or incentive any different when it comes from Chorus or a group like that than when it comes from your audience? I know
that is true. No, and I agree with Destiny's point on that. That if you have an audience that's like, let's say you're in the far left space and you just happen to push back on a very specific anti-Israel narrative, you might feel less inclined to do something like that. And I'm not trying to diminish that is another pressure, but I am saying that if you're receiving monthly stipends that is your full-time payment that you otherwise would not be able to make this content, you're going to feel a little pressure regardless of how much that is implicated or like, darkly, scandally, like these people are like pushing it on you. It's just inherently going to be that way because it's your only source of income.
So, do you know how long the cohorts are for?
Oh, all right, hold on.
I think it's 6 months, right?
And the rest of you.
If it's 6 months, that's not even a worry then.
Yeah, it's a training program, right? It's a training program. So you're trying to
pro course. I applied last week. I'm just trying to like give the idea of like why people might be worried about this. Although again, the article I think is going way further than any of these arguments that I've laid out. It's saying a lot of much more awful things.
Yeah, but
I thought I was going to be debating against that, so I've got all the notes on that specifically.
Bring it back to a point with the.
Hold on, wait, sorry. Before you go, Anne, you're saying something just so we don't lose the point. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I don't know if I'm getting drowned out.
I'm gonna be honest. I feel like we all agree that when it comes down to it, there could be pressure in so many different ways. There might be an innate difference in terms of getting a very, very direct monetary stipend, but unless there's, he already said it, there's no insinuation that there's any pressure to say very specific things.
But how would this be any different from a different job? Like if I go to work for some company and I don't know, I'm producing something for them, and then they say, hey, by the way, if you like go around doing shit that we don't like publicly, we're going to fire you. You lose your job at that point, just like you would lose your job with this. I don't know.
Because this job is sharing your opinion, and especially with the alternative media, I'm not saying this is a fair expectation. I'm just saying it's an expectation. When you're an MSNBC pundit or a Fox News pundit or whatever, it's expected that you're going to follow your institution's bias. Whereas you're saying like, hey, I'm Connor, I'm this guy, this is my ideology, burp, burp, burp. Then what they're expecting is that you're some level of authentic, and so that's kind of where like the credibility comes in.
You don't think the conservatives? Just to address that, you don't think the conservatives think that people on Fox News are actually holding those opinions?
You know what? I think conservatives are so stupid they might actually genuinely believe that that's their earnestly held opinions. However, I think they're stupid for believing that.
Well, it might depend on how.
I can ask any conservative in my life. Like I can literally call someone up right now and be like, "Do you think that like the people on Fox News believe what they're saying?" And they'll probably say yes. And I guarantee you, a lot of them actually do.
Does it matter if they believe or not?
Well, it might depend on how
their audience.
It might depend on how explicitly you hang like your sponsors and your audience's face, right? Or your funders and your audience's face, right?
And the point is, if you're saying I'm authentic and I tell it like it is, like Connor was saying, but your authenticity only goes so far as you're willing to agree with the people paying you, then you're not authentic and you're diluting your audience. Which again,
but we see that with political. We see that with political tribalism, though.
How is this any different than if like I don't know what kind of words I can say. If somebody doing like OF acts as if they're like in love with some customer or something, like that's not authentic, but they're acting authentic.
I would say it's not different.
Surely your waiter at the restaurant does not give a shit
that would
about your life.
Immoral though, right? Like even if it's not illegal, it's immoral.
Okay, whatever. We'll pull the sex work out of it because I know everybody gets triggered over that. But like, just take your waiter at a restaurant, like Cracker Barrel. They don't give a shit about your life. They don't care about your dog. They don't care about your baby sitting in the chair. Like they don't care about any of that. But they're pretending to be authentic, and no one cares about that.
Never loved you.
Oh shit! I was
people do care about that.
And I did
Look,
care
the
about
stripper
my
said she loved me.
Okay.
I would disagree with that. I would not. I didn't give a shit about my clients at all when I was serving. I was being nice to them
Exactly.
as part of the job.
Damn, you guys are shitty servers. I was like,
it was a
please pull up
job. I
pictures of your
can't care
dogs.
about
I want to take a look at your
people in a
shitty
day.
dog.
It
What?
depends
I
on the
try to be
audience.
nice and whatever, but I'm an authentic person, but I try my best to be nice to people because people need to be nice to each other.
Okay, so,
Right?
so
Yeah,
I,
and
I
that-
don't.
uh,
If we're
for
not,
influencers-
I agree with you that in spirit that it's not different than any legacy media creator having a bias towards their institution, and that the audience needs to grow up. However, I think that, like, similar to your question where somebody was like, "Oh, do you believe that the people who watch Fox News think that those are earnestly held opinions?" How do you communicate that to the audience? Because if we look at the Twitter mentions right now, I know Twitter isn't a perfect barometer, but on Twitter right now, there's thousands, if not tens of thousands of people who are upset because they think that their favorite liberal or progressive creator is not approaching them from an
No.
authentic direction.
that
Now,
is
they're
not an
stupid,
authentic
but how do you
upsetness.
communicate that?
That is not an
Well, that's a
authentic.
different-
We got. It's not real. They
Well, I
do
think
not
The
act
audience
like-
might be
wait,
real.
I think-
The Taylor Lorenz might not be real, but the audience that's upset
I don't
might
think
be
they
real.
are.
I think
Because
some
when you-
people. I think some
that's a big
people.
bet.
I think some people can be upset. Okay, wait. She's right. Was trying to talk like 12 times.
Yeah, go ahead, CJ.
Thanks. Yeah, different people go into different experiences with different expectations. Anyone who's branded as an influencer, those audiences are expecting authenticity. To your waiter, you expect them to be nice, but you don't actually expect them to be authentic, and that's why you're not upset when they're not. With news,
I
it's
don't
not
think that's true at
authenticity,
all.
it's truthfulness and reliability.
And I think,
I don't
I think
think
there's
that's
something.
true at all.
I think there's an extra thing at play here. So
I do think expectation is there, and I actually do think that is true. I do think expectation is determines how people change up all the time. I feel like this is what I say constantly to people is that you should not present yourself as like the perfect individual, the perfect being, like super good, always nice, right? The perfect example of it is like certain celebrities or Mr. Beast, for example. Like he does all this philanthropy, he seems like he's a good guy, he seems like they're always having fun. The moment you find some chink in the armor, everybody turns on you. But in an opposite version of looking at that is when you look at Donald Trump, for example. Like people expect him to be a piece of shit. So when he is a piece of shit, nobody cares. So I do think that expectation can determine a lot. I try to tell people authenticity is very valuable. But if authenticity is also very much correlated with transparency, then that I can see why people have that expectation, regardless if it's realistic or not. So, but my thing is just make it very obvious that if you're going to seem like you're always transparent with your audience, if that is your platform, then you're going to have to be consistent with this too. For me, I'm like, I don't know, like there's certain information that you definitely don't have to be transparent, but you just got to explain this stuff away. I agree with expectation determining a lot. 100%. I do agree to that.
When we bring up the Fox News example, it's not hitting on the same thing. Like if it came out for the Fox News guys that every single Fox News host was also sponsored by some conservative, like, I mean, we could pretend to care some conservative company, but I think nobody would care. But like, let's say tomorrow it came out that every single like centrist podcast that all happened to bend towards Trump. What if it came out tomorrow that all of them were also sponsored by like the Koch brothers? We're paying like 50% of their salaries. I think everybody would like look at it meaningfully differently because the assumption would be, well, hold on, wait, I thought you guys didn't have a certain political influence or partisanship, but all of you guys are getting paid money from like the same place. I think you'd look at it a bit differently. I think this issue isn't mapping onto those examples well because everybody with Chorus, I'm assuming from what I know, are all like liberal left-leaning creators. So it doesn't seem likely that they would be getting paid to change their opinion anyway. They're probably just finding people already who happen to agree with those opinions.
Yeah,
Aren't
that's a
they
good point.
trying to maintain a facade of non-partisanship though? Like that's like on their website, if I'm remembering.
I mean, if you call
Chorus?
yourself a liberal,
Yeah,
like,
on their
openly call
website,
yourself a
pretty sure.
progressive or liberal. Like, I don't know if you would call yourself like non-partisan.
All it says is
necessarily.
we have these. It says we have these values. Okay, we have these values. If you have shared values, we want to give you the tools to start a media operation for yourself to be self-sustaining. Okay, if you share these values, it says nothing about parties or supporting parties. And when Brian Tyler Cohen goes on and he says we can't coordinate with the party or toe the party line, it's because they literally cannot do it legally. Their lawyers will tell them they can't do that as a 501c4. And all these lefties on Twitter don't give a shit at all about the classification, which is why this conversation, even having it, is a loss because they're not saying real rational points to respond to. I think someone else brought that up earlier.
Yeah,
But I
the
don't
reason I
necessarily
have
want to
such a hold on, the reason I have such like strong opinions on this is because this isn't my first rodeo with these kinds of accusations, right? And Connor can back me up here. And when we were in Progressive Victory, I on every single stream I did had like paid for by Progressive Victory, like contracted with Progressive Victory, right? I was as forthcoming with it and disclosing it as I possibly could be. and it was never enough. It's not enough.
Let's get Beckett on here. Let's see if he agrees with your characterization.
I mean, of course, because he's going to dishonestly, in my opinion, paint this as something shadowy because they are using it as a weapon. It's Taylor Lorenz and her cohort are using it as a weapon against liberals because they hate liberals for a variety of reasons. These are not honest actors. Let's stop treating them as they are, please.
Then fine, let me shift the conversation to the dynamic that you guys are talking about, because it sounds like we have enough overlap that we're ultimately fighting about window dressing, okay? So you're saying, and Steve and I talked about this a couple of days ago, that this is not an Democrats in successful Democratic creators or liberal creators to groom in a positive way other up-and-coming liberal creators in order to become successful is not a controversy. It's actually stupid that this is a controversy. It's not good faith, okay? Let's say that we all agree with that, relatively speaking.
Hell yeah.
Okay, but now what Steven is saying, and some other people are saying, is we don't need these people. But the argument from the far left and the progressives is that they are between 10 and 20% of the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party lost the last election by tens of thousands of votes.
I don't believe their numbers. Okay, so that's one. And two, I would posit that by getting rid of them, the albatross around our neck, it will allow people who are scared of those people on the center and the center right to once again join the fold that had previously left. We would gain more than we lose.
Okay,
is there nothing of value from leftists or progressives? And
so that's another interesting point of conversation, right? The value of retaining the far left politically. So I'm going to break this up into two things. So there's one way to look at it is that, okay, let's say there's a margin of these far left individuals that could sway election. Let's give them the number 10%. 10%. So you want to make sure that you're adhering to them so you can get that 10% of vote to sway these elections. And as we've seen from the presidential election, that these are very small numbers. However, by pertaining to the far left and a lot of their unhinged principles, you dismiss a lot of people in the center and people on the center left. Because I'm sure people have heard some people in the center left have detached themselves so much from the Democratic Party because of the far left that they voted for Trump. Is that smart? No, that's fucking stupid. Okay. Now, the second way you could look at this is that instead of capitulating to the far left, there's still going to be a portion of them that have enough common sense to realize that any Democrat will be better than any Republican. So not voting for a Democrat is just fucking brain dead. And then the rest of them who won't vote anyway, unless you capitulate to them totally, fuck them. And then you start capitulating a little bit more to the center. By doing that, you start bringing in those people who are moderates, the people who are not political. So when those people vote, they can start seeing like, okay, now this side seems much more reasonable. They detach themselves from the far left. Okay, I'm going to vote for this. So you gain in all those voters. So you have to weigh the pros and cons. My strategy is very simple. I'm strategy number 2. If the far left doesn't want to vote for Democrat, I don't give a fuck at this point. Now, if they realize that a Democrat will be much more adherent to helping their cause than a fucking Republican, then they definitely should vote Democrat. And I'm much more willing to hear them out, especially if they realize that there is a certain level of compromise they need moving forward. With that said, most of these voters that we need is the moderates, and we've turned them away to the point they voted for Donald fucking Trump. So yeah, I'm advocating for strategy number 2.
For instance, like as an example, I'm a former law enforcement officer. I should be the first person who hates, police reform or whatever, but I don't, because there's plenty of stupid shit that cops do all the time that should probably be legislated against. And so as a result, the progressives, the BLM movement, totally stupid. Defund the police, totally stupid. But is there something productive there where they're pointing to a real problem that should be addressed by Democratic legislatures? Because let's face it, the Republicans aren't going to do shit about it.
Okay, what?
So I agree to that, and I do think. I don't think police reform is a far left principle. I think defund the police is a far left principle. That's what I would combat that.
What issue is that? What issue are they pointing to that needs to be addressed that you find valid?
I would obviously say universal body cameras, like federally.
No. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about police reform. I'm talking about funding in the leftists' criticisms of liberals. What are they pointing to that's honest that you think that they need to change?
Oh, I can speak on this
for
because
this
you
specific
talked about this
drama.
earlier, but go ahead, Connor. Sorry.
Yeah. Just I'll address it. I'll try to be brief. For this specific drama, I do not think that there is anything that I would concede to these what we think are bad faith critics. However, their bases still care about progressive and further left economic and social issues that you do need to address if you want to attract the voters away from these shitty pundits.
Okay, I want to
she's right. I know
specifically
that you
address
raised
you
your
with
hand.
though.
Sorry,
Oh.
wait, Phil, 1 second. She's right. I know that because you haven't had a lot of opportunity to speak. I know that you wanted to say something.
I lost my thought. I'll catch up.
Oh, okay, sorry. Keep going.
So specifically, and I heard some people saying like, oh, what is dark money really an issue? The issue with dark money is not the idea that like, oh, it's potentially going to shift people's opinions. Dark money is just, hey, we don't know where this is coming from, and that means that potentially this could be huge sums of money that are like paying people to say things that they may or may not believe. That if you look in, if you read Dark Money by Jane Mayer, like you can see that there's tons of small elections across the country with millions and millions and millions, if not billions of dollars coming from Koch brothers, wherever, that are completely transformed because you're able to pay for all these things that do work in these small time elections, like ads, like campaigning, like all this stuff that you wouldn't otherwise see. And it's not directly like, oh, I'm paying for this ad, but the way that they're able to spread this out is shifting House seats. It is shifting certain things. Now, people like to say, oh, I gave Ted Cruz $10 million. Now he's pro-oil. That's probably not what's happening. Ted Cruz is pro-oil and he gets $10 million because he is pro-oil. So the issue, the only valid criticism I think any of this stuff is from the left is, hey, we should know who's giving these people money. And that's it. Now, the great part about that is 1630 is advocating for the overturn of Citizens United, so you can't not disclose who you are when you give this money. So even though they are a dark money fund with like $400 million, they're saying, hey, we want to get rid of this. Right now, our donors are allowed to say not who they are. We want that eventually to go away. So I'm fine with it.
First of all, I am pro Citizens United. I think that was a rightly decided case. I don't know if anyone disagrees with me here.
I would disagree.
Okay, well then good. We have some disagreement. We can go. The whole thing about Citizens United is, again, I'm going to ask this question again. Like, what is wrong, fundamentally immoral, or what should be illegal about a group of people getting together, pooling their resources, and putting those resources to causes that they care about? Is that not free speech? And in addition, why would they need to why can't they do this anonymously? Say I wanted to donate to Soypill, and say Soypill had a lot of baggage that I might be embarrassed to donate to Soypill. Right? They found his they found his memoirs about what he wanted to do to all the Muslims and things like that. Right? I don't know. Right? Some kind of scandal. But I still believed in what Soypill wanted to say, and I wanted to give him money. But I was afraid that if I was to give him money and people would find out, that people would harass me and target me and these things. So why should I not be able to anonymously give?
Yeah, I just disagree with that. I do think if you are okay with donating because of their message, you should be also okay with the baggage. Like that's what you're saying by giving him money. I'm okay with his baggage, so XYZ. I'm pro transparency, but I do understand the argument of backlash. My issue is not necessarily that people get backlash. My issue is people illogically give them backlash based off superficial reasons that are not grounded in reality.
To him, right? In order
to be
help
clear,
him
Wick,
out.
you can anonymously give to me by insofar as you just make a random YouTube account that's not linked to your name and super chat me, right? And you should, because I've super chatted you a lot and you still haven't bought YouTube Premium. So that's an issue on its own. The actual problem is that when you have this dark money stuff and you have the Citizens United, the amount of money is on a scale completely unrelated to what you just said. Like if you just like, oh, I'm just one guy trying to do this, we're talking like this is amount of monies to like shift the entirety of like districts and counties that have absolutely nothing to do with the constituents in those places who might otherwise say, hey, I want to vote for this guy because he aligns with me, which is how democracy is supposed to work. And hey, I was able to spend so much money on campaign ads in like these 17 different districts in Alabama that all of these old people who just watch TV and see these campaign ads are now completely going to shift their vote because some guy in a completely different state with hundreds of billions of dollars was able to push it into that. So it's about the scale and the precedent and what that amount of money is able to do. People are upset by that. And I don't particularly like it, but I can see an argument
Wick,
for why it's a limitation
should it be
of free speech.
Should it be unlimited spending, Wick?
But from domestic, I don't see like what would you limit it as?
No, I mean, do you think like spending on these PACs and everything should be unlimited for super PACs and for 501c4s?
What would be the argument for limiting it? Like, and what would you limit it at?
So like the obvious argument is the same thing when it's like, for example, one freedom of speech question legally would be, can you protest outside of an abortion clinic or outside of a religious establishment? Yeah. So we have some rulings that say, oh, well, we have a perimeter around that church that is 100 feet, 100 feet. 100 feet is too much of an infringement on freedom of speech, but we can do 15 or 20 feet. So you can't be, right in front of the church building. You can still be there protesting, but you can't be yelling in people's faces. So there are legal rulings in the Supreme Court for that. So for this, for example, it would say we should not have unlimited campaign spending, but maybe there's some limit. Maybe even like there's one.
I feel like the counter argument is very easy. You put a limit so the people who don't have all the money can't decide what laws are because they're such a minute part of the population that adhering to them could one be adhering to very minute value system, or two adhering to people who are hyper focused on their pockets, their wealth, so adhering to policies that benefit them and their pockets. So I mean, these easy. It's just basically adhering to a very small population of America because they have all the money. Like, that's why you have a cap.
Some Democrats pushed that would tie the amount of like super PAC spending to the amount you could spend on PACs. Would you support some limit in general?
I'd have to think more about that. My instinct, and I'm swayable on this, frankly. But my instinct is no. I think any limit would be arbitrary. Like, as long as, and again, my answer changes if it's foreign funding. If foreign funding, I don't think you should be able to be anonymous or anything.
Like the whole tenant media situation.
Yeah,
right?
that's different. I think that there's good reasons, security reasons, to want that to be different. But when it comes to Americans wanting to donate to American causes, I don't know if I support a limit.
What if it was like a dual? What if it was like a dual citizen who was an American and another?
Then they get.
nationality?
No, I was going to say, what if they're a Turkish nepo baby and their billionaire dad leaves them a few $1 billion?
Okay. Yeah, we just disagree with that point, my good sir Wick. I mean, the foreign thing is very obvious because they'll be against like American principles potentially. There might be a direct nefarious reason why you're trying to affect American politics when you're not from here for your own international gain. I think you can make the same logical consistency with like billionaires who will do things more than likely in the best interest of their own monetary gain. Now, I am not a totalitarian in saying that I think that all billionaires are bad. I don't believe that. I do think they become billionaires because they are willing to do certain things that, no matter what, to continuously grow their wealth. But I do think a lot of them are more than willing to do whatever it means to grow their wealth. So, yeah.
And then they start sweeping elections for socialism and communism. What if?
Well, when that starts
You know, just
happening, let me know.
hypothetically speaking.
Okay.
Let's fucking go.
When that starts happening, let me know. But my problem with like all these laws is it restricts people's ability to anonymously, and I think anonymity is important, right? To anonymously support causes that they want. Like, we wouldn't want to get rid of the anonymous vote, would we? Even though the arguments.
Well, I think so. I think one thing when you talk about anonymity and when you talk about your rights is there's always a balancing test for these things. Like any right can be curtailed, as they often are. The balancing test oftentimes has to do with how narrowly tailored is whatever law we're looking at to restrict some right, and then what is is there a compelling state interest to do so, right? So I think when we talk about voting, right, like should you have to disclose who you voted for? You have one vote. You're not, swaying an election on your own unless you're, traveling with 400 million illegal immigrants or whatever the Republicans accuse people of doing. But with funding, now you can say that you have a right to privacy there, and when it comes to you buying a thing for your own personal consumption, I think there's a strong argument that you have a right to privacy there. Although conservatives disagree now, apparently, when it comes to pornography in 7 states or whatever, or abortions, I guess, in however many states. But the public also, I think, has an interest in that, right? Like there's a strong public interest in what the soy pill was saying. Let's say that I have this feeling that, man, there sure do seem to be a lot of Second Amendment supporters in the United States of America. I'm seeing this messaging everywhere. Let's say that it came out tomorrow that it was actually literally just Elon Musk because he saw, some laser gun movie and he's like spent $100 billion, $2 billion per state, and it was just him through other companies the entire time. I think people would look at it a little bit differently. Like, well, hold on. Well,
oh, there you go. Destiny's making my argument in terms of like capitulating to a small part, minute part of the population.
Now that I know that it's just Elon, who's literally like 98% of the funding of our state, it kind of changes the way that I feel about it. And there is a public interest there,
Yeah, I could be convinced perhaps to have a list where you have like, you wouldn't name the names, but you would have the amount of people and the amount donated per person. I can see an argument for that. But my issue with releasing names, right, is this is often used as a vector for harassment to try to pressure people. And it can have a chilling effect. Say, again, like if I really do believe that what Soy Pill is doing is correct, and despite the allegations against Soy Pill, should I like?
Yeah, I agree. I understand the chilling effects are, but like chilling effects
my community, right?
Chilling effects aren't always bad, right? Because we to some extent we want a chilling effect. We don't want one person necessarily to feel comfortable being 99% of the contributions towards one cause across several states, right? We want to chill maybe potentially some types of really intrusive spending there. But now, like, can you avoid chilling individuals who want to donate? Maybe not. I mean, this is maybe why these limits exist. Maybe past a certain amount of money you'd have to disclose. I personally think it would be challenging, but I think that everybody that does media, I think, should have to disclose all of their income sources. I think it would be incredibly revealing.
I agree. I get the idea of like these people getting harassed and whatnot, but like at the same time, it's just a circle of accountability. Now, the annoying part is people on the internet. So I already agree to this stance, but I'm trying to think through on the extent of like revealing who you are in terms of like what you're doing. Um Nah, I think I making it too complicated will be too hard. I think it's as simple as you just reveal who you are, to be honest, and it is what it is at that point. There might be enough of a challenging effect to say that. Oh my goodness, I let him a challenging effect to say that these people who are unhinged on like the far left or the right, that they'll be held under the same standard. So you can kind of prove their hypocrisy or inconsistency depending on who they advocate for. But at the end of the day, what is more important is tangible results. So if your donations are proving positive tangible results, then there is going to be a direct correlation to their logic being flawed.
I want to
Yes,
share my OnlyFans donators. Okay.
Well,
I don't want to share my.
regardless of the like, if everyone should disclose thing, I like really quickly want to talk about the like limits thing. This might be asking you to assume something that isn't necessarily what I can prove here because I didn't prepare this. But if you were to accept that a large amount of money, significant, not like from any one person, but from a pool of like multi-million, if not billionaires, was able to sway elections or voter sentiment in certain areas, even if it was on county scale, this isn't general election stuff, would you not say that it is somehow now not fair that individuals who can contribute as much as possible will never be able to match up with people who are able to completely subvert what would otherwise be a free, democratic, free thought election in a smaller place because they're able to shift public sentiment so much with that amount of money? Does that not strike you as something that's a little like undemocratic, or at least something that would be unfair if that was true? I know I can't prove it to you right now.
Sure. Is it unfair? Perhaps, but my interest isn't necessarily in fairness. That's not my overarching concern, though it is something that we should.
All right, Z's not saying much. Conservatives want to spend 2 hours talking about something like cores were so cooked. Like, really? I don't know. They're not really saying much, so I'm probably gonna. No, they are having a good conversation, but good conversation. People are not okay with good conversation. So, but is it realistic now? It's tough to say. That said, that's all I got. Appreciate y'all. You have a good one. Take care. Peace.